Faced with the mysterious and dangerous fantasy of the Middle Ages in front of him, Ronan, who had traveled through time, held on to his wizard and developed a small game that trembled with fear. He lacks a sense of belonging and has no intention of breaking up feudalism. He only wants to stay away from the barbarism of civilization and shrink into his remote territory, silently developing. As a wizard with eternal talent, what he lacks the most is time. The imperial turmoil under the Black Death pandemic, the emergence of racial wars in the New World, and the conflict between scientific and religious beliefs, the protagonists of the era rise and fall, while the unchanged wizards below silently observe. Keywords of the novel. The Eternal Witcher is observing without a pop-up window. The Eternal Witcher is observing. Download the complete TXT collection. The Eternal Witcher is observing the latest chapter. Chapter 1. Worst Times. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Worst Times. Sheneo Empire, Otto Kingdom, Capital Triumphal City. Darkness envelopes the sky of the empire, and you are all sinners who should have endured pain and death. However, the Lord is merciful and entrusts his servants to bring hope to the lost lamb. You should believe in the Lord, cut off the sins of money, and offer sacrifices of faith. The Lord will protect his people. Under the ornate Carolingian octagonal building of the Paladin Cathedral, the most famous masterpiece of imperial arched architecture, clergy holding evangelicals loudly proclaim their teachings. About a year ago, a wave of death swept across the entire continent, and the god of death named the Black Death mercilessly reaped the lives of civilians and nobles, treating them equally, cruelly and ruthlessly. Infected individuals are ostracized and victimized, their bodies block the waterways outside the city, and uninfected individuals are anxious and have no intention of working. Many small and medium-sized towns are unable to resist disasters, resulting in almost complete paralysis of agriculture, handicrafts, urban transportation, and even more so, they have already become a dead city. Compared to that, as the capital of the kingdom, Triumphal City at least maintains basic order. The military stabilized the situation in the city by sealing off all infected individuals and their families in slums on the outskirts of the city. Therefore, it also attracted a large number of financially disadvantaged nobles and merchants within the kingdom to seek refuge. Among them were feudal nobles who gave up their territories, surviving officials from dilapidated towns, and small merchants who fled. And they all have one thing in common, without exception carrying a considerable amount of wealth. The officials of Triumphal City warmly welcomed them, and the church held a grand mass specifically for these people. Under the Paladin Cathedral, around the clergy, dozens of glamorous foreign nobles offered prepared gold and gemstones. 20 meters away, on the outskirts stopped by the knights, thousands of civilians in short brown linen clothes without covering their bodies knelt on the ground, handing their only possessions to nearby knights and attendants. In return, they received a relatively clean communion bread. As a member of the nobility in the city and a vassal of the royal family, 16-year-old Ronan Otothius was also invited to attend this mass. At this moment, he is sitting at the very center, at the very end of the seat provided for members of the royal family to rest. Ronan looked around and saw that most of the men sitting around him were mature men over 30 years old with beards. They were all his uncles and elders in terms of seniority, and there were also a few teenagers of the same generation who yawned impatiently. What left him speechless was that his cheap father did not attend this important ceremony. In order to avoid gossip, he had to sit down honestly and dispel the idea of leaving early. With his head resting on the soft back of the chair, Ronan pondered his future plans. He has traveled to this world for 16 years, from the initial confusion to the current habit. The good news is that he was born into the imperial family, and his uncle is the emperor of the empire. Although my father doesn't have much real power, at least he holds the title of honorary earl. The two brothers have a harmonious relationship and even married the daughter of a feudal earl, with a high status in the capital city of Triumph. Thanks to the screening of excellent genes from generation to generation in his family, he has a delicate appearance, blonde hair, purple eyes, and a decent appearance. For Luonan's second son, his parents have also taken good care of him in this lifetime, and it seems that it is also good to be a nobleman waiting to die for nothing in this life. The bad news is that this is a terrible era, with the barbarism of the Middle Ages, the brutality and tyranny of the nobility, and the numbness and ignorance of the common people. The Shenao Empire, which ruled over half of the continent, was plagued by constant conflicts between monarchy and divine power, with numerous central and local conflicts. This sudden epidemic has darkened the color of the entire empire. Even the Ottoman Kingdom, which is directly ruled by the emperor, finds it difficult to enforce its policies, let alone other principalities and vassals within the empire. After the Great Calamity, there will inevitably be chaos. The Black Death shattered the authority of feudal lords in various regions and would bring decades-long pains. But this also gave Ronan an opportunity. The ruling class within the original empire had long been solidified, with each fiefdom having its own owner, belonging to a trap. Unless you are the eldest son of a fiefdom nobleman, it is possible to inherit the territory after your father's death. Otherwise, there is basically no other way. This set of rules safeguards the interests of all feudal nobles and cannot be provoked at all. But now it's different. A large amount of unowned land has been cleared, although according to the laws of the empire, these lands can only be inherited by the descendants of feudal nobles. But the premise is that they must also be willing. As far as Ronan knows, there are currently a large number of fleeing nobles selling their land in Triumphal City. The reason for this situation is that, on the one hand, the high cost of living in Triumphal City makes it difficult for these foreign aristocrats to make ends meet. On the other hand, it was because after losing the feudal nobles, the kingdom's policies were difficult to implement in these territories, which caused dissatisfaction from the emperor. He ordered all feudal nobles to return to their territory within 3 months. The nobles, who had already been scared out of their wits by the Black Death, finally managed to escape to Triumphal City. How could they be willing to go back? Some of them had no choice but to sell their land. The emperor also tacitly accepted this behavior, as long as both parties involved in the transaction were nobles, signed an agreement in the presence of the city hall and church, paid taxes, and declared the transaction established. Ronan is undoubtedly eligible, even though he is only the second son in the family, his family title has nothing to do with him. But as early as the age of 12, he was awarded the title of honorary baron by his uncle at a palace banquet hosted by the emperor, enjoying all the rights that nobles should have. If it were just an ordinary person traveling through normal circumstances, Ronan wouldn't have had his mind twitched and would have run outside the city to seek death in this situation. As a qualified traveler, he naturally has his own golden finger. That is a wizard cultivation game that came with him and appeared in his mind. Ronan opened the game panel in his mind. Name: Ronan Otothius. Occupation: Witcher talent. Immortality specialization. Mysterious studies level. LV1 magic. 20/20+1/hour unlocked knowledge. Swordsmanship, sharp .1/hour, cavalry shooting, mounted enhancement .1/hour, auto aiming .1/standard arrow, pharmacy, effect enhancement .10/standard bottle, unlocking the next level condition. Own your own research workshop. The wizards in this game are somewhat different from the traditional wizards, as they do not allow people to unleash the dazzling spells that destroy heaven and earth. Their abilities are reflected in their talents and expertise. Immortality in talent is only in the game's sense, representing that he will not age or fall ill, but he will still die even if he is fatally injured. And expertise in mystical research. This expertise allows him to learn a certain level of knowledge and appear on the unlocked knowledge panel, which can then be endowed with a certain mystical characteristic by consuming magic. Just like swordsmanship, he has successfully unlocked it through years of persistent night training, spending 1 point of magic to give his weapon an hour of sharpness. Even if he is holding a wooden stick, he can easily cut metal and divide rocks through it. The characteristics unlocked by other knowledge are also literal. Night training has been the focus of his most time spent in recent years. After all, in order to live long, he must be able to fight and run. As for being able to fight, it has always been that those who punch cannot fight those who hold swords, and those who hold swords cannot fight those who pull bows. In terms of being able to run, it goes without saying that even if two legs fight for their lives, they are only worthy of eating dust behind four legs. The only regret is that, whether due to the wizarding profession or not, he has not yet been able to learn the night breathing technique in this world, and cannot master the extraordinary power of the local realm. On the contrary, it was pharmacy that successfully unlocked it without any intention. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The Simple Night. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The Simple Night. The existence of this game is the driving force and confidence that made Ronan determined to become a feudal lord. At present, in order to become stronger, besides spending a lot of time learning other knowledge, the most direct way is to upgrade the wizard level. After leveling up, his total magic and recovery speed will both increase. The effect of specialized mystical research will be stronger, and it can also unlock a brand new specialty, greatly enhancing his strength. The method of upgrading is to establish a research workshop that is recognized by the system and belongs to oneself. Ronan needs a fiefdom of his own to fulfill this condition. The reason why we did not consider establishing it in Triumphal City before was partly because the materials required for the research workshop were not expensive. So far, Ronan still lacks a few samples and has not been purchased in the city. On the other hand, it is also because in the early stages of the game, once the research workshop is established, it will be bound, and later it will need to be upgraded to difficult-to-hide buildings such as the Wizard Tower. There is magic in this world, although it is rare, it does exist. Therefore, there are also various extraordinary professions, and knights are extraordinary beings who integrate magic into their bodies through special exercise methods and breathing rates. Other professions such as warriors, thieves, assassins, and so on should not be much different from the principles of knights. Basically, it relies on a strengthened body and exquisite skills to make a living. On the battlefield, it cannot be called invincible. According to the records of imperial scholars, even the most powerful holy knight had to retreat 3 points when facing a barrage of bows and crossbows from an entire army group. The group of pastors in the church that Ronan couldn't see through the most. Rumors have it that priests possess magical powers similar to those of spellcasters, capable of summoning wind and rain, and displaying divine spells. Ronan is not sure if their power is controlled by magic or comes from that elusive master. He doesn't know, nor does he really want to know. Curiosity often kills cats. They just want to leave Triumph City and find a secluded spot to squat in, silently escalating. When standing at a high enough angle, even without actively exploring, many things will naturally appear in front of you. Ronan is not in a hurry. When his thoughts turned around, the ceremony in the church had already come to an end. His elders around him had already stood up and were eagerly conversing with the nobles around him, engaging in a new round of interest rotation. In his current position, Ronan is not yet qualified to participate, and he is also willing to do so. When no one cares about him, he gets up and walks out. Outside the door, a knight who was over 2 meters tall and sturdy, carrying a heavy broadsword, stopped talking to the other knights and quickly followed him. "Big brother." "Well, let's go, it's over inside," Ronan responded. The other party is his personal guard knight, named Ed. He was originally the son of the family butler, half a month younger than himself, and grew up together since childhood, naturally becoming the person under his command. Ed practiced the silver-level breathing technique bestowed by his family. The power of mountains, which can reach the highest level of the Silver Knight. Since successfully breaking through the night a month ago, his figure has been constantly expanding towards the direction of giants. This is a characteristic of the power of mountains. Although it cannot produce exclusive knight skills, it can strengthen the body far beyond its peers. Ronan is currently less than 1.7 meters tall, and even a bit petite when standing in front of the other side. After becoming a knight, Ed's simple and even somewhat simplistic mind did not change. The only thing that left Ronan speechless was that as long as he wasn't by his side, this guy couldn't help but want to come forward and fight when he saw other strong people. So much so that Ronan often found him lying in bed with a blue nose and swollen face, looking pitifully at himself. The reason why his own pharmacy can be unlocked is largely attributed to him. By experimenting with the properties of various herbs, he has obtained effective healing potions. With the level of a physician in this era, Ronan dare not let others treat him. He has only such a great general under his command, and he cannot afford to lose. "Pack up your luggage these days, we will leave Triumph City in a while," Ronan explained to him as he walked on the road. Upon hearing this, Ed immediately showed an excited expression and lifted his broad sword, which was nearly half a meter wide, behind him. He couldn't wait to say, "No need to prepare, big brother. With just one word from you, I'll leave right away. Who are we going to attack?" God knows how aggrieved he has been during this time. In Triumphal City, there are too many rules for knight competitions, and he can't let go of his hands and feet. He can't keep up with others and can only be beaten. He has been looking forward to going out for a long time. "You don't need me, it's just an intention at the moment. I still need to plan where to go." Ronan rolled his eyes. Ed touched his head, not quite understanding the meaning, but he didn't mind either. Anyway, Big Brother would arrange everything, he just listened and did it. Besides, be prepared to endure hardship after leaving Triumphal City, as life outside is not as privileged as here. As long as you can eat enough, that's fine. Ed rubbed his stomach, ready to try the taste of gnawing on tree bark when he went back. Between the words, the two had already left the church district and entered another street. Triumphal Avenue, Southeast District, Fragrant Street. As soon as they walked in, Ronan and his wife both covered their noses with some discomfort. The smell of spices and mugwort burning here is too strong, and stepping into this place unpreparedly can even make people feel dizzy at one point. But all the doctors on this street are passionate about it, believing that it can kill diseases and prevent them from getting infected. Despite the ignorance and backwardness of physicians in this world, during the period when the Black Death ravaged, they were indeed actively exploring the causes of the disease and various solutions. They listed various theories, including climate change, witch curses, magical toxins, and so on. The most popular theory among them is the odor theory, which means that diseases are produced by foul-smelling substances in the air. As a result, the entire Triumphal City was shrouded in a smoky environment, with faint smoke floating in the air. The Central Palace and Fragrant Street are two heavily affected areas by the fragrance of spices. The Central Palace is the residence of the royal family and high-ranking nobles. Fragrant Street is a gathering place for major doctors treating the Black Death, where they exchange their research on pathology, treatment methods, and measures to be taken. In addition to heavy spices, they also believe in a bodily fluid theory similar to that of the previous Hippocrates. It is believed that there are four main bodily fluids in the human body: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. People also suffer from the Black Death due to fluid imbalance, and at this time, bloodletting therapy must be used to balance body fluids. Ronan is uncompromising about their various ideas. He doesn't want to participate in their discussions anyway. On the other hand, he often visits Fragrant Street and even bought a small house here. Because here he can buy various herbs he needs and prepare potions on site. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Powerful Potions. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Powerful Potions. Ronan purchased a 2-story small building on Fragrant Street, with the first floor being a studio for disguise, displaying various strange and mysterious objects. It is said that the skull of a saint who can treat headaches, the huge and ferocious bird beak mask, the sun-dried lizard corpse, withered plant stems, and the powder of dry feces from black dogs paired with many brightly colored bottles and jars, live leeches bred to suck blood, and metal knives used for bloodletting, they are all scattered on the workbench. Ronan's identity will attract considerable attention in Triumphal City. Since it's inevitable to have to run here frequently, it's better to shape yourself as a doctor to reduce suspicion. Anyone who comes in and sees these things will think that the people living here are experienced and skilled doctors. Well, it's a doctor, not some evil wizard. There's no way, this is the style of doctors these days. Even when I see him as a legitimate wizard, I can't help but sigh. Come to the house. Ed leaned his broad sword against the wall, then crossed his legs and sat on the ground, blocking the door, eagerly staring at passers-by. After closing the door, Ronan ignored the various peculiar materials on the first floor and went upstairs directly. The second floor is his bedroom, and it is also the place where he truly dispenses medicine. More than 10 wooden boxes for storing herbs, some animal shell molts, some quartz tubes for distillation, alcohol lamps, and a large pile of records written in strange words. In his past life, Ronan had almost no understanding of medicine, and his knowledge of medicine was limited to cold medicine and painkillers. This life is limited by the overall environment, coupled with limited time invested, and can only vaguely explore the medicinal properties of common herbs based on memory. Willow bark contains salicylic acid, which can relieve pain and reduce fever. Dandelion can promote the body's detoxification. Lavender contains volatile oils and monoterpenes, which can be used for antibacterial and anti-inflammatory purposes. Plant extracts such as ephedrine or mandala can be used for pain relief and anesthesia. By blending different ingredients in different proportions and conducting multiple experiments. So far, there are 3 types of drugs that can be considered qualified in Ronan's hands. A healing medicine for injuries caused by falls and injuries, an antidote for clearing heat and detoxifying, and an anesthetic for relieving pain. In terms of effectiveness, it can only be said that it is all supported by peers. If that's all, it can't be said to have much effect in this magical world. But when the power of mystical research acts on these potions, everything is different. Ronan picked up a bottle of healing medicine packaged in a quartz tube, about the thickness of his index finger, and showed his ability to use it. Pharmacy, enhanced efficacy .10/ standard bottle, the total magic of 20 points was instantly reduced by half. Magic flooded into the potion, causing it to change through some indescribable mysterious rule. The slightly cloudy light green liquid becomes crystal clear and transparent, presenting a vibrant emerald green. Healing Potion LV1 contains a rich breath of life, which can inject vitality into cells, enabling the body to quickly produce blood and heal wounds. Ronan looked at the potion in his hand, and miraculously, an explanatory text appeared before his eyes after the enhanced potion. This allows him to more conveniently understand the effects of the items he creates, and the effects of the potions are much more powerful than he imagined. Ronan had conducted experiments with animals and had his abdominal artery cut open. The wild dog, which had lost half of its blood, was successfully recovered by pouring a bottle of medicine. The experiment continued, and with the friendly assistance of friends from various dogs, Ronan gained a detailed understanding of the limits of the medication. The treatment effect for blood loss and trauma is so good that it can be saved with just 1 bite, as long as it is not dead. But when faced with bacterial infections, visceral damage, bone fragmentation, and limb disabilities, it doesn't have much effect. Even so, it can still be considered a miracle medicine in this era. After all, in night battles, the loss of blood caused by wounds is often the key factor in death. Not to mention that this thing can also be used as an energy potion. When the body is overworked, drinking a bottle can directly restore vitality. In addition, the effects of the remaining 2 drugs after strengthening are equally significant. Immune Agent LV1 strengthens the body's immune system, eliminates invading bacteria and viruses in the body, and the immune effect can last for several years. Enhanced by detoxifying drugs, the therapeutic effect can make antibiotics feel ashamed and commit suicide. More importantly, the medication effect is not one-time, and after drinking it, there is no fear of infection for several years. Losing Soul Potion LV1 an anesthetic with extremely strong volatility and diffusion, which can cause ordinary organisms inhaled to faint for several hours to several days enhanced by anesthetics. Unlike the previous two life-saving potions, the soul loss potion carries an aggressive nature in both its name and text introduction. This also prevented Ronan from easily testing, as he could not determine the extent of the drug's volatilization and diffusion. In this era, there are no closed laboratories. If one accidentally causes a sleeping incident of 10,000 people in Triumph City, then the fun will be great. Considering the amazing effects of the first two potions, Ronan has some speculations about their power. Carefully packaged multiple layers to ensure no leakage even in the event of severe collisions. Ronan has a total of 20 magic points, restoring 1 point per hour. Due to the need to ensure that you have at least 5 points of magic at all times to deal with potential dangers, you can manufacture up to 3 bottles of strengthening potions per day. Pharmacy unlocked 10 days ago. Excluding experimental expenses, Ronan has prepared a total of 10 bottles of healing potions, 8 bottles of immune potions, and 3 bottles of enchanting potions so far. The healing potion goes without saying, it's just another life, and Ronan himself needs it. Although immune potions have strong effects, they possess immortal talents and are rarely used. They are mainly prepared for family members and fiefdoms. There is currently no place for enchanting potions to be used, but they must be available in case of unexpected needs. Bind 1 bottle of each of the 3 medicines on the inside of the clothes, and organize the rest in the luggage. After that, Ronan will dispose of the experimental records on the 2nd floor and various herbal residues, preparing to bid farewell to this place officially. As for this house, Ronan decided to take advantage of this special opportunity to sell it. Recently, a large number of doctors and foreign nobles have flooded into Triumphal City. Fragrant Street is located in the inner ring of the capital and is also considered one of the safest areas, with housing prices skyrocketing day by day. When Ronan bought this house, he spent about 200 gold coins, but now he can at least double it by 30 times. If it's less than 6,000 gold coins, there's no need to talk about it. Under normal circumstances, a skilled worker in Triumphal City can earn around 10 silver coins a year, while the exchange rate of gold and silver coins remains at 1.100 throughout the year. In other words, before the Black Death, a low-level worker needed to eat or drink for 2,000 years to buy a house here, and now it takes even more than 60,000 years. Of course, in this era, this kind of conversion is not very meaningful. It should be noted that among the nobility, the price of a dress may be around 30 to 40 gold coins, while a family of 4 in a slum spends less than 10 silver coins per year. The existence of class makes wealth distribution unreasonable. As a member of the vested interests, Ronan naturally has no intention of changing this. He is not a good person by nature, let alone facing a distant world. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Dirty Holy Water. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Dirty Holy Water. Arriving at the first floor, Ronan looked at the various abstract, medical tools, placed here and felt a headache for a moment. Why not handle it on the spot and sell it together with the house? After a moment of thought, Ronan dispelled the idea and realized that playing the role of a local doctor for so long, it was strange to have sold all his assets at once. In addition, the nobles are not interested in these things and cannot sell them for much money. He picked up the huge bird beak mask hanging on the wall and put it on his face. The mask covered his entire head, and the protruding bird beak was stuffed with mugwort, believed to be able to block the spread of diseases. Placed next to the bird's beak mask is a thick linen epidemic costume soaked in wax, which appears black overall and can cover Ronan's entire body. This is the image of a doctor who was feared and despised by countless civilians during this period in Triumphal City, known as the Black Death God. Because when a large number of doctors dressed in this way gather in a certain area, it indicates that there are multiple cases of the Black Death, and nearby people have to be expelled to quarantine areas outside the city. The result of going there can be imagined. Ronan shook his head, took off his mask, and packed his clothes into the box. At the same time, invite Ed outside to come in and help him take all the items here. Although doctors in this era are difficult to trust, Ronan is not worried that the empire will be destroyed by illness. The extraordinary existence is one factor. He is not clear about the situation of the church, but a strong knight can withstand it with physical fitness. This is also the reason why the order of Triumphal City remains stable, and truly powerful nobles are not afraid of the Black Death. On the other hand, the empire had a large enough population. The Otto Kingdom alone has a population of over 100 million, and the total population within the entire empire's territory is at least 4 to 5 billion. After the disease ravages, the losers are eliminated, and collective immunity will be established in the most brutal way. After organizing all the items on the first floor into a large wooden box, Ed easily picked them up and followed Ronan out of the door. There are still many things to deal with next, whether it is buying land or selling a house. The quickest way is to seek help from the Chamber of Commerce in Triumphal City. Those businessmen are as sensitive to information as hyenas foraging on the grassland, allowing them to quickly match the trading partners. But before that, Ronan needs to go home first. Since unlocking pharmacy 10 days ago, he has been living in a house on Fragrance Street and starting to prepare a large amount of medication. This time, in addition to reporting the situation of the church mass to our family, we also need to explain our plans and find a way to feed them the immune potion. Walking on the street, Ronan can clearly feel the desolation around him. As a central area of the city, compared to before, bustling crowds are no longer visible on the roadside. Every household's doors are tightly closed, and occasional pedestrians are also in a hurry, with a solemn expression on their faces. However, this desolate situation quickly changed. Ronan stopped and looked towards a platform. At this moment, a large group of people was gathering there, bustling and in stark contrast to the surrounding quiet environment. At the center of the crowd was a priest dressed in a white pastoral robe, holding a gospel book with a gentle smile on his face, preaching to the people around him. "Praise my Lord, holy water will wash away the impurities of the soul and take away the troubles of illness." In addition to his speech, he also took out wooden small boxes and distributed them to the surrounding audience. Inside is a soap made from ground pine cones mixed with water, which is of great value in this world. Ronan stood aside and listened for a while before quickly understanding what was going on. This is the faction of the Archbishop of Holy Water, who is promoting their salvation philosophy. The soda called holy water is not an extraordinary item, it is actually hot water, or even more frankly, it is simply shower water. Years ago, when Ronan realized that he was in a barbaric era reminiscent of the Middle Ages, it made him feel hopeless. He thought he was going to live in an extremely dirty and disgusting world where everyone emitted a foul odor, but the result was far better than he had imagined. The lives of nobles may not be comparable to modern times, but they can still be called clean. Although the environment for ordinary people is poor, they do not reject taking a shower. On the contrary, going to the bathhouse is a rare enjoyment for them every week. Many factories even use regular bathing as a reward to attract a large number of workers. Public bathhouses called steam baths can be seen everywhere in cities of all sizes in the kingdom. Even the highest authority of the church, the College of Cardinals, one of its archbishops, stood up and endorsed the steam bath, calling it the sole bathroom that could cleanse the mind and body of filth. However, this situation changed after the outbreak of the Black Death. Like doctors, the church is actively searching for the source of diseases and has generated two completely opposing factions within. Fundamentalism believes that the Black Death was caused by bathing, and that while water washes the body, it also takes away the vitality of the human body. Maintaining the original posture of the body is the piety towards the Lord, and it is the duty that every believer should fulfill. They called on the emperor to immediately shut down all public bathhouses and prohibit everyone from taking baths. The faction led by the Archbishop of Holy Water believes that bathing can wash away impurities from the body and take away diseases. Not only should it not be banned, but it needs to be vigorously promoted. Local city halls should allocate funds to allow the public to take free showers. As a modern person, Ronan's position goes without saying. Is there still a problem with taking a shower? Well, he belongs to the fundamentalist faction, and bathing is really a problem. Although the theory is unfounded, their conclusion is actually not a problem, and the steam bathroom should indeed be shut down. Ronan had been to the steam baths in various areas of Triumphal City several times with curiosity, and since then he has never stepped into such a place again. Bathrooms are gender neutral. Many bishops believe that co-bathing between men and women is vulgar, but the owners behind the bathroom pretend to turn a blind eye to it. Moreover, the erotic industry in bathhouses has been repeatedly banned, and in some cities, public bathhouses and brothels are no different. This is not bad, and the worst part is that there are a large number of dirty people entering public bathhouses every day, polluting the bathwater and pipes, yet almost no one cleans and replaces them. In addition, the heat emitted by the steam pipeline can attract a group of mice to gather, and dead mice are often found blocking the pipeline mouth or floating in the bathhouse. This makes the bathroom almost a large breeding ground for bacteria, with every person entering at risk of infection. Ronan could not intervene in the struggle between the two factions of the church. To his relief, at least in Triumphal City, all steam baths were temporarily shut down. The members who support the Archbishop of Holy Water faction are mostly small and medium-sized nobles and factory merchants, and their influence in Triumphal City is insufficient. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Cute Sister. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Cute Sister. Walking forward from Triumphal Avenue, Ronan quickly arrived at the core area of the capital. The Central Palace. This is a large-scale palace-style architectural cluster built around the imperial palace, mostly consisting of residential areas for upper-class nobles and high-ranking officials. After showing his identity to the knights patrolling the outskirts, Ronan took Ed to his mansion. "Big brother, then I'll go find my dad." Ed packed Ronan's luggage and said goodbye. Although it is only a mansion covering an area of several thousand square meters, the internal planning is still quite complete. In addition to the main residence where the Ronan family lives, there are also two secondary castle arches surrounding it, which house the family's knights and attendants. Here you are. It's not easy to come back after we leave. Have a good drink with your family. Ronan took out a bottle of wine from the box and handed it to him. This is a treasure obtained from a foreign aristocrat in the morning. Ronan added 2 bottles of immune potions to it, which not only did not damage the taste, but also added a layer of flavor. Based on his understanding of Ed and the butler, the two of them would enjoy drinking as soon as they got their hands on it. Ed excitedly picked it up and couldn't help but scratch his head. He hurriedly ran away after Ronan waved his hand to drive him away. Farewell to Ed. Ronan arrived at the entrance of the main residence and unexpectedly looked at a woman waiting at the door. A white military dress paired with a breastplate, adorned with a medal with 2 crossed golden swords, and adorned with a slender handguard and piercing sword hanging from the waist, exuding a cool and fierce aura. The palace guard is responsible for protecting the safety of female family members of upper-class nobles in the central palace. 2 golden swords represent direct royal allegiance. Of course, the royal direct here refers to the emperor, and the Ronan family does not have that qualification yet. This is the guard responsible for protecting the queen or princess. After seeing Ronan approaching, the female guard bent down to salute, with standard movements, and then lowered her position. The entire process remained silent. Here, Ronan is the master, and she has no right to speak out before the master speaks up. Due to being responsible for the harem, palace guards often have stricter requirements for etiquette compared to their strength. Has Princess Isa come to visit? Yes, Her Royal Highness Princess came to visit Miss Alice in the morning. Ronan nodded to show understanding, then walked into the door. Based on family relationships and the fact that the other party was not visiting for the first time, there was no need to avoid seeing them more often. Strolling around the hall, Ronan didn't find anyone. He walked into the backyard and indeed found two young girls playing on the lawn. Ronan's family has a total of 3 children in his generation. The eldest son, Edson, is 25 years old this year and has already joined the Royal Guard as an officer. He rarely lives in the military and returns home. In the future, he will inherit the family's wealth and titles. The second son, Ronan himself, is 16 years old and has been granted the title of Baron by the Emperor. Due to a lack of communication with peers, he spent a long time studying medicine in the Fragrant Street and faced many criticisms. However, his family strongly supports his choice. 3 girls. Alice, 14 years old this year, is also the blonde girl in the garden at this moment. The fluffy and smooth golden hair has a slight curl at the end, and the translucent eyes, like amethysts, sparkle with magnificent colors. The pure white dress and lace gloves showcase a pure teenage image, while the purple shawl surrounding the chest adds a touch of mystery. Thanks to the love of her parents and the warmth of the family environment, Alice has a lively and outgoing personality. She is currently bouncing around in the garden, harming the flowers and plants that her mother has carefully planted. In sharp contrast to her, there was a silver-haired girl sitting on the grass with her legs together. Even without outsiders, the girl's sitting posture is still elegant and standard, with carefully crafted long hair flowing neatly behind her, and a delicate platinum crown on top of her head showcasing her identity. The 4th princess of the empire, Isa Ototheus, is most famous for her unique silver hair. Everyone in the royal family wears a head of golden hair, but fortunately, this princess inherited the iconic amethyst eyes of the Ototheus family, so no one would doubt it. After receiving the bouquet handed over by Alice, Princess Isa was the first to notice Ronan entering, showing a gentle smile. Alice suddenly looked at him, feeling somewhat disgusted, and leaned in. "Ronan, why are you back now? You're disturbing the world between me and Isa. You'd better first think about how to explain to your mother about the harm you caused to her favorite rose." Ronan flicked her forehead, "and remember to call me brother." "With Isa around, Mom wouldn't be angry," Alice snorted unhappily, covering her pure white forehead. "Thank you for being 1 year older, so you can just shift the blame, right?" Alice pouted angrily, but after thinking for a moment, she suddenly showed a sly smile and let out a sweet voice towards Ronan. "Brother." When Ronan looked at her, Alice lifted her purple shawl and revealed the delicate body of the girl below. The white dress covers the key areas, but there is a cracked V-shaped opening in the middle, connected only by transparent gauze, and the fair skin is clearly visible. Compared to the free clothing on the stage in previous lives, it is certainly not much, but in this era, it is too open. Looking at Ronan's helpless expression, the mischievous girl proudly spat out her tongue at him. "Your clothes. Don't worry, besides my favorite Isa, I won't let anyone else see it. Being with me doesn't make me a human." Ronan rolled his eyes and felt relieved. "Just know the right balance, it's not his turn to worry about anything else." The relationship between Ronan and Princess Isa is not very familiar, it is only because Alice has some understanding of each other, and there is not much to talk about between them. After saying hello, he left the garden and returned to his own room. Leaning against the seat in the room, he took out a wooden box from his pocket. "This is on the way here," taking soap from the preacher's hand. Ronan thought of the clearly divided struggle between the 2 factions in the church today, as well as the milk fragrance on his sister Alice, which carried the fragrance of a young girl. "It's not a bad thing for me that the Archbishop of Holy Water's faction really won. After all, nobles have their own private bathrooms, and few people go to public bathhouses crowded with commoners. And the bishops of the fundamentalist faction are too extreme. These people not only want to shut down public bathrooms, but also want to ban everyone in the empire from bathing." End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Dirty Streets. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Dirty Streets. At noon, Ronan and his family of 4 were sitting in the restaurant enjoying lunch. Princess Isa had recently left and returned to the palace. Alice also changed back to her normal attire and sat beside Ronan eagerly waiting for the dishes brought by the maid. A sliced piece of white bread, a grilled pork cutlet topped with honey, a plate of mixed fruits, presenting a milky white thick soup, and a plate of slightly sweet sauce. This is the share per person today. Compared to the past, the variety of dishes has decreased, but the weight is still full. Although the Black Death seriously affected the commercial channels of the kingdom, its impact on food was not as huge as Ronan had imagined. This is mainly due to the Ottoman kingdom occupying the most fertile land on the continent, with over 70% of the kingdom's territory being fertile plains for growing food, making it the most important food-producing area for the entire empire and its overseas colonies. When the Black Death broke out, the wheat in various territories of the kingdom had already been harvested and paid tribute, and the nobles had hoarded a large amount of food in their hands. At present, the most affected products in Triumphal City are spices and jewelry. The price of the former is increasing day by day, while the latter is the opposite and increasingly worthless. On the dining table, sitting across from Ronan, were his parents, the Earl of Grant and Mrs. Orena. Compared to the vast majority of aristocratic couples in Triumphal City who seem to be completely divorced and based on political marriage, Ronan's parents can be called model couples. Count Grant, who had a goatee, was seen by outsiders as idle and neglectful of his duties. As a court official, I often miss important formal occasions and indulge in various banquets and hunting entertainment. But his feelings for his other half were unexpectedly loyal, always accompanying Mrs. Orena during banquets, and his interactions with other aristocratic ladies lasted until the end. Unlike other nobles who, after giving birth to offspring with pure bloodline, play their own games and have chaotic private lives. Perhaps it is precisely because of this that his relationship with the emperor is much closer than that of other brothers. How was the church mass held today? Count Grant asked Ronan curiously. Last night I was busy studying my condition and missed the time in the morning. Are you sure you didn't just oversleep? Ronan was slandered in his heart and didn't forget to answer, not really. This wave of outsiders is mostly members of the noble family, including many heirs. This is bad news. Most of the people who arrived at Triumphal City before were small and medium-sized nobles who lacked the strength to resist disasters and could only seek protection from Triumphal City. And the great nobles had a powerful army, vast land and population, and the first wave of the Black Death was difficult to harm their roots. But now, even they are starting to send their offspring to Triumphal City. This indicates that they are losing control of the situation within their territory, and the terrible situation in the kingdom is further worsening. Count Grant's brow furrowed slightly, but soon relaxed again. He changed the topic and began happily discussing with his family about the recent embarrassing incidents of the nobility. Ronan praised his aloof attitude towards life and opened a bottle of wine for him. The highest quality white wine produced by Helen Winery, which was snatched from the Helen family this morning. Count Grant's eyes lit up. Since trade was blocked, the food in Triumphal City has been fine, but the prices of various luxury goods enjoyed have skyrocketed, with no price in the market. Especially this high-quality wine, which is regarded as the face of the nobility and cherished, is now simply not available for purchase. After pouring a glass, he savored it carefully. 3 specially cultivated grape juices were brewed separately, and then mixed with the special flavor of aging, making him feel intoxicated, and the taste was far more perfect than he remembered. This may be the perfect masterpiece that the Helen family finds difficult to replicate, but it's a pity. Count Grant thought of the current dire situation, and with the power of the Helen family, their winery and vineyards may be difficult to preserve. On the other hand, Ronan felt the soft touch coming from his calves under the table. He noticed that it was his sister's small gesture and poured her a cup as well. Alice finally patted his shoulder with satisfaction. After lunch, Alice was grabbed by Mrs. Orena's ear and taken to the backyard to handle the affairs of her beloved flower. During the process, Ronan watched his nose, and heart, turning a blind eye to his sisters seeking help. Later, he approached Count Grant and explained his next plans to him. "Have you made up your mind? Are you sure you want to leave Triumphal City at this time?" Count Grant looked at him seriously. Of course, Ronan nodded. Count Grant had no intention of obstructing Ronan's decision. On the one hand, he has always advocated for freedom in the education of his own children and does not impose much restraint. On the other hand, Ronan is only the second son in the family, and for Count Grant, even if he dies from the Black Death outside, it will not have any impact on the family. On the contrary, if it is truly achieved, successfully rooting in the fiefdom outside would be of great significance to his lineage. After all, his eldest son, while inheriting the title, was also destined to stay in Triumphal City and not have his own fiefdom. The returns far outweigh the risks, which is not a multiple-choice question for nobles. Ronan simply received the support of Count Grant and also received sponsorship funds totaling 3,000 gold coins from him. As for the purchase of the fiefdom, Ronan had to figure out a solution on his own, as Count Grant's identity did not support his intervention. After receiving support from his family, Luonan's available funds instantly became much more abundant. A total of 3,200 gold coins and a property worth over 6,000 gold coins. When Mrs. Orina found out about this at night, he had an extra 520 gold coins in his pocket. Well, 20 gold coins were given to him by Alice, emptying all her savings over the years. When she gave them with reluctant eyes and harshly condemned his sudden decision to leave. The next morning, Ronan and Ed left the central palace, preparing to head to the business center established on the outskirts of the city. After the two of them walked out of Triumph Avenue, the surrounding environment took a sharp turn, and the originally clean and tidy streets gradually became uneven, with piles of debris and garbage starting to appear on the road surface. This phenomenon became even worse when the two of them walked into the residential area where a large number of urban residents lived. The ground is filled with grass and soil carrying livestock manure, discarded inedible animal organs, stinky fish and rotten shrimp, broken pottery and debris, and black ash burned from boilers and stoves. In the stoves set up on the street, the incense of mugwort ignited mixed with the foul odor emitted by these filths, forming a more complex and unpleasant odor. People living here have obviously become accustomed to the environment and walk on these garbage as if nothing had happened. Ed was also prepared for this, wearing a pair of shoes that looked like clogs, but with two long wooden strips added below, to reduce contact with dirt with height. He raised his right arm flat, with his fist pressed against his chest, allowing Ronan to sit on his arm and carry forward. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Absurd Prices. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Absurd Prices. I can't believe this dirty place is actually the capital of the kingdom. A sharp scream came from Luonan's ear. He looked in the direction of the sound and saw a woman with a broken expression shouting in shock. Not far from her, a woman wearing a linen skirt expressionlessly splashed feces from a pottery basin onto the street. The former took a big step back, covering his face and trembling all over. Other passers-by turned a blind eye to the woman's behavior and instead looked contemptuously at the screaming lady. After all, only nobles can make such a reaction. Recently, there have been a large number of nobles who have fled from other places to seek refuge in Triumphal City. Some of the small and medium-sized nobles have lost the support of their territories and are not eligible to enter the comfortable areas of upper society such as the central palace. Due to the pressure of life, the residents here have had to move to the outskirts to live, which has really made them laugh a lot. In this era of entertainment scarcity, it is a great opportunity for ordinary people to see the embarrassing expressions of aristocratic elders. The ground here is really dirty. I heard that the environment in other cities in the kingdom is not as bad as Triumph City. I can't figure it out. Ed looked at his feet and sighed, even he didn't like to step on a pile of excrement. Because it is the capital city, the initial urban planning could not keep up with the speed of population development, and there was a lack of cleaning personnel, which inevitably led to heavy consequences. Luonan looked at the densely packed houses on the street. The initial architectural planning of Triumphal City only considered the daily life of 100,000 people, but in the decades since its construction, the population has skyrocketed to nearly 500,000. The comfortable area of the nobility once again occupied a large area of land in the center, with a large number of people crowded in a narrow environment, resulting in nowhere to pile up household waste. The public health system could not keep up, and gradually formed the dirty cities of today. In fact, the environment on the streets here has improved compared to the past. Due to the outbreak of the Black Death, the number of people living here has decreased and naturally become cleaner. The Chamber of Commerce center of Triumphal City is located at the entrance of the South Gate, which is the most densely populated area. As it is no longer a residential area nearby, the ground level can at least accommodate foot traffic. After getting off Ed, Ronan entered it. In the central hall, there stands a huge bulletin board with sheepskin scrolls filled with transaction information posted on them. Ronan found a nearby receptionist and asked him to bring the list of territories that were currently being sold to him. At the same time, he took out a rough map depicting the distribution of power on the mainland and fell into contemplation. The continent where Ronan is currently located is divided in half by a vast mountain range called the Death Mountain Range, while on the other side is a wasteland ravaged by monsters, which was also the initial terrorist threat that led to the establishment of the empire. On this side of the mountain range, there is the powerful Sheneo Empire. The empire consists of 7 major entities, including the Otto Kingdom directly ruled by the Emperor, the North Lion Duchy guarding the Death Mountains, the Coral Duchy located on the peninsula, the Elven Kingdom occupying the largest forest area, the Holy Land ruled by the Church, the Bachelor's Castle formed by countless colleges, and the Dantama alliance of city-state communities formed by merchants. The Triumphal City Chamber of Commerce Center where Ronan is currently located is owned by a senior member of the Dantama alliance, who also serves in the palace as the overall head of currency issuance. The current popular gold and silver coins in the Sheneo Empire rely on the gilding process that is difficult to replicate by the Dantama alliance, making the cost of imitation much higher than the value of the gold coins themselves. In addition, the ability to establish chambers of commerce in various parts of the empire through the Dantama alliance allowed the value of gold coins to be unanimously recognized by the lords. This is the only way to establish a unified monetary unit in this era. After receiving the price list handed over by the receptionist, Ronan's eyebrows twitched. Although he knew the greed of the nobility, he never expected it to be so outrageous. The cheapest territories on the list cost over 30,000 gold coins, which are located in mountainous areas far from the capital and on the border with the kingdom. They have a sparse population and lack minerals, making it difficult to grow food. Good guy, during the prosperous period of your territory, can you earn 50 gold coins in annual taxes? How dare you sell it for 30,000? Are you crazy? Ronan can understand the feelings of these feudal aristocrats. In this era, feudalism can be said to be the fundamental basis for a family's survival, and it is a belief that many nobles value more than their lives. Its true value is difficult to measure with money, and no one is willing to give up unless absolutely necessary. But this price is purely a dream. Times have changed, and now remote fiefs are not treasures, but rather execution notices sent by the Grim Reaper to lords. The normal value of this lowest level backward fiefdom is around 4,000 gold coins. Now, no one is interested in even 100 gold coins. This is not a collectible, just buy it and put it away. But rather, one must take the great risk of death and cross mountains to go there responsible, pure and hot potato, otherwise why sell it? No wonder he hasn't heard much about the transfer of fiefdoms during this period. It seems that this transaction about fiefdoms has just begun. Foreign nobles want to sell at a high price and are unwilling to sell at a low price. The nobles in the city are waiting for a period of 3 months. If you don't sell, you will be driven back to your own fief. Then the price will not be the final say decision. On the other hand, they are also buying time for themselves. After all, after buying the fiefdom, the 3-month deadline falls on themselves. Ronan flipped through the list and ignored the advantageous fiefs located near Triumphal City. These places have already been reserved by the descendants of the big family, and they do not meet his expectations of being away from the center, let alone he cannot afford to buy them. Finally, he set his goal in one of the positions. Cold Wind Leader, located in the northernmost border area of the kingdom, the territory is filled with mountains, rivers, and hills, and further north lies the desolate ice plain. Its advantage is that due to its remote location, the cold wind zone covers a wide range, and even as long as one is brave enough, the super-large unmanned area in the north can be used as their own territory. Moreover, having a vast territory and sparse population is a disadvantage for other lords, but it is actually suitable for Ronan. No matter how much noise he makes, it won't attract attention. As for the price of the cold wind collar, Ronan ignored it directly. This number has no practical significance, and the seller is completely pricing it based on the land price of Triumph City. Baron Exeter, contact address 18, Violet Street, Hushin Avenue, Southwest District. Ronan noted down the other party's position, and in order for this transaction to be successful, the key is for both parties to have face-to-face discussions. In fact, after seeing the other party's current place of residence, Ronan already had a sense of certainty in his heart. In Triumphal City, the comfort zone of the nobility is divided into three major areas from top to bottom according to their level. At the top, there is no doubt that it is the central palace, while in the middle, it is the Victory Avenue adjacent to the parish. Finally, there is the central avenue built around Lake St. Peter in recent years. Due to a lack of background, the nobles of Hushin Avenue had to constantly spend money in order to improve their status and show their face. Clothing, food, housing, and transportation, as well as food and clothing, all choose the most expensive ones, to the extent that the entire area has developed a culture of extravagance and enjoyment. And they extremely despise the lives of ordinary people. If the standards of local nobles hosting banquets do not meet the requirements of guests, they will be boycotted and even expelled. Baron Exeter is clearly a noble who pursues dignity and disdains to wander in the common people's living areas. But Ronan doesn't think that a small aristocrat in a remote mountainous area can afford the cost of living on Hushin Avenue. This baron may have been anxiously waiting for his arrival. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Nobles in Debt. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Nobles in debt in Triumphal City. When visiting other nobles, it is necessary to send someone to notify one day in advance to demonstrate etiquette. However, the person sent by Ronan, upon returning, reluctantly told him that there was no one in Baron Exeter's family. Ronan was somewhat surprised. It should be noted that the aristocrats of this era had an extraordinary obsession with face, and there were no attendants left at home, which was very impolite to let incoming guests return in the cold. He flipped through the information about the Baron's arrival in Triumphal City, which he had obtained by spending 1 gold coin from the Chamber of Commerce Center. After a while, Ronan looked out at the evening sky and called Ed to leave. After calculating the time, he decided to visit the other person's home now. Hushin Avenue, Southwest District, Violet Street. Compared to the solemn environment of the Central Palace, the atmosphere here appears very lively, with vendors selling goods, pedestrians dressed in various costumes, and performances full of exotic charms scattered on the surrounding streets. The exhibition booth with agate and jade stones was sold by merchants, and the monsters tied with iron chains were displayed huddled in cages. Not far away, dancers from the north dressed in thin gauze began to dance, while minstrels played and sang the poetry of the kingdom. The lack of knights patrolling the streets on Hushin Avenue not only reduces safety but also enhances its commercial attributes. The extravagant atmosphere of local aristocrats has attracted a large number of merchants to gather, forming numerous trade markets around them. Especially with the recent illness leading to the convergence of wealth towards Triumphal City, when the Central Palace and Triumphal Avenue were strictly guarded by knights, this place became a trading paradise. Ronan walked on the street, and for a moment even felt like he had come to the commercial street of his past life. Of course, with the influx of people and a mix of good and bad, some annoying professions naturally emerge. Ronan pinched one person's wrist and exerted a slight force, causing their face to twist and show a painful expression. This is a child who appears to be 11 or 12 years old, with a thin and weak physique, short brown hair, and wearing a coarse cloth jacket with many repair marks. Just now, the other party collided with Ronan and tried to take something that didn't belong to them. "Big brother, what's wrong with you?" Ed scratched his head and looked over strangely. Ronan gave him a self-understood look, and at the same time, he had a plan in his heart. He needed a more intimate guard. Ed's strength is very strong, and there is no need to doubt his loyalty, but his brain is truly untrustworthy. Let him guard against those strong men who open and close with weapons, and he can rush up at the first time, becoming an insurmountable high wall. But facing the assassin with a confusing appearance, Ed, who relied on his body shape to confirm the threat, couldn't turn his mind. Just now, people's small hands touched Ronan, and his eyes were still on the roasted sucking pig or roasted baby pig beside him. However, this matter is urgent. For Ronan, the loyalty of the guards is far more important than their strength. Turning his mind, Ronan turned his gaze to the thief he had caught. The latter is constantly wriggling his arms, trying to break free from his palm. Unfortunately, this power is meaningless in front of Ronan's strong physique, which has been trained by knights. "Please spare me, sir. I dare not dare again." With a slightly crisp voice, Ronan saw clearly the other person's dirty little face and realized that she was still a girl. Facing the fearful and uneasy gaze, Ronan looked around again and let go of his hand. The girl breathed a sigh of relief. Just as she was about to run away quickly, she found a huge high wall in front of her, casting a shadow over her whole body. Ed, who finally understood Ronan's gaze once, stopped her. "Follow up," Ronan instructed as he walked ahead. The girl looked at the monster in front of her with arms thicker than her waist, her throat twitched, and her body stiffened as she followed. Walking on the street, Ed scanned the surroundings and spoke to Ronan ahead, saying, "Big brother, there are people around staring at us." "Well, there's no need to talk to them," Ronan replied nonchalantly. Just before the girl bumped into him, Ronan noticed several men staring at him. Black short coat, bare arms, with a red headscarf wrapped around the head. This is also why he wants to bring the unexpected gain of the girl with him. 18 Violet Street, outside a delicate 3-story wooden building. As expected, Ronan saw the tightly closed door and two men dressed similarly to the previous ones waiting outside. Both sides looked at each other, and the two men saw Ed behind him and quickly stood further away. After a while, a well-dressed couple walked onto the street. The man was wearing a popular silk robe from the nobility, with a half-round cloak adorned with jewels on his upper body. The woman was wearing a luxurious multi-lace dress, and behind them was a cute little boy. It can be seen that this is a family of 3 who have just attended the aristocratic banquet, making passers-by feel envious and in awe. However, as he was about to arrive home, when he saw the two people at the door, the aristocratic man's face turned very bad. "Bastards, are you crazy?" Baron Exeter couldn't suppress his anger and shouted at the two of them, "Damn it, how dare you come to my house, guards? Where are the guards of the kingdom? Why can these scumbags come in here too?" Faced with the baron's roar, the leader of the two took a step forward and smiled, pressing his hand on his shoulder. Baron Exeter's body trembled, and the real pain on his shoulders, as well as the cold expression on his face, made him shut his mouth. "Have you calmed down, Baron?" A man named Aksha reminded him in his ear. "Don't forget, you borrowed 200 gold coins from our brotherhood over a month ago, and 3 days ago it was already the deadline for repayment. From your aristocratic status, the brotherhood has decided to grant you some time, but it seems that you haven't taken it seriously at all." As he spoke, Aksha looked at his wife behind him with a smirk on his face and said, "The clothes are nice, lady. There's something about me inside." The Baroness was so frightened that she hugged her child and felt a little lost. Baron Exeter's face was flushed with anger, but he couldn't break free from the opponent's palm for a long time. "Excuse me," someone on the other side interrupted their conversation. Ronan, who had almost figured out the situation, grabbed the wrist of the girl next to him, preventing her from making a small attempt to escape, and then waved to Ed to come forward. A palm the size of a fan held the man's head and lifted him up. Just as the Baron was weak in his own hands, Aksha felt as if he had been caught by the rumored Titan. He wanted to break free but became increasingly powerless, feeling suffocated. Until Ed let go, he collapsed to the ground, greedily breathing in fresh air. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Setoff of Deaths. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Setoff of Debts. May I ask who you are? Only then did Baron Exeter, who had gained liberation, notice Ronan beside him. Watching him dressed in aristocratic attire and clearly surrounded by knightly guards, Baron Exeter's face instantly exuded a flattering smile. "Ronan Otothius, it's nice to meet your excellency the Baron." Ronan handed him the visit letter engraved with the family emblem. At the center of the red coat of arms is a golden scepter painted in gold powder. Heavenly bestowed royal power, this is the coat of arms of the Empire's royal family, the Otothius family. However, unlike the Emperor's coat of arms, the coat of arms in Ronan's hand features an additional symbol resembling a pendant to distinguish between the main and collateral families. Due to his age and the fact that he has not yet separated, Ronan is still able to visit the outside world under the name of his father's family. Baron Exeter received the visiting letter and, upon seeing the coat of arms on it, carefully placed it in his arms, his flattering smile deepening a bit. "It seems like there's some minor trouble here." Ronan looked at Aksha, who had already recovered a bit. The latter's face was pale, but after noticing his gaze, he forced a smile and quickly pulled out a scroll from his body. "Sir, you misunderstood." Aksha spread out the scroll in his hand, on which was a loan agreement with the seal of the city hall. "Baron Exeter borrowed 200 gold coins from our brotherhood, which is a notarized contract. If it weren't for the Baron's reluctance to repay the debt, how could we dare to trouble a nobleman?" When Aksha noticed Ed's gaze directed towards the scroll, he couldn't help but take a step back, his arm trembling, afraid that the other party would take it directly. But Ronan will definitely not let him do such a foolish thing. In Triumphal City, violence is always the last choice, especially for nobles. No matter what virtues they have in private, they need to maintain their reputation openly. Everyone here needs to follow the rules, even the Emperor is no exception. It was precisely because of this that the Baron's face turned gloomy again. He didn't want to repay the money, but he really didn't have any money. After arriving at Triumphal City, in order to integrate with the local aristocratic community, he needed to hold a grand banquet to entertain guests. For this, he also needed to prepare a venue, purchase dignified formal attire, purchase rich food, and hire a group of courteous maids to receive and serve. In addition, there were many scattered living expenses that he couldn't even afford to support the attendants around him. Borrowing money from local gangs is a helpless move. If he cannot be accepted by the local nobles and cannot return to his fiefdom, he is no different from a commoner. As for the issue of repayment, Baron Exeter, who has been lingering at the banquet these days, has already selectively forgotten. It's ridiculous. A group of scum from the sewer dare to come and trouble him with a baron, right? This is also the reason why he was so angry when he saw members of the Brotherhood appear in front of his own house. It wasn't until he truly understood the threat from the other side that Baron Exeter realized the difference between Triumphal City and his territory, and the Mafia here clearly didn't take him seriously. The humiliated anger turned into fear and quietly leaned towards Ronan's back. "In that case, as a gift for the visit, let me help the Baron pay off this bill." Ronan looked at the contract and spoke, causing smiles to appear on the faces of both the Baron and Aksha. "Of course, sir, of course, you seem like a reasonable person at first glance." Aksha rubbed his hands and smiled. "The principal is 200, the interest is 250, and the extension for 3 days will increase by 60, totaling 510 gold coins. What are you saying? Baron Exeter poked his head out from behind Ronan and stared at him in disbelief. I received a total of 180 gold coins back then, but now you've almost tripled it. Triple it. Damn it, the vampires in Death Mountain are not as greedy as you. The contract is very clear, I dare not fool you, sir. Aksha didn't answer the Baron, but explained to Ronan. Regarding this, Ronan's expression did not change, instead he smiled and nodded. Okay, let's calculate based on 510 gold coins. Just waiting for Aksha to continue being happy, Ronan's next sentence quickly lowered his mood. As a price for your brotherhood offending me, this 510 gold coins will be used as compensation. Sorry, I don't quite understand what you mean. Aksha tried his best to slow down his tone, his smile becoming increasingly dry. I have always respected you, my lord, and I am confident that there has been no offensive behavior. Don't worry, there's no intention of targeting you, Ronan comforted him and continued to explain. On the way here, your companion had someone reach out to me, you should understand what I mean. The girl caught by Ronan, who was originally just standing in confusion, suddenly felt a chill running through her spine. She looked up and saw a pair of cold eyes that wished to tear her apart. Her feeling was right. Aksha, who had already understood Ronan's meaning, couldn't suppress his anger and had already unleashed 10,000 ways to torture her. Thinking of the punishment for not completing the task, he could no longer maintain his expression. Sir, I think there must be some misunderstanding here, I'm not discussing with you, Ronan interrupted him and said to Ed, let him hand over the contract himself, otherwise he will be punished for provoking the nobles. After speaking, he stopped paying attention to the other person and turned to look at Baron Exeter. Excuse me for visiting, can I come in and sit down? It's a great honor. Baron Exeter, with a bright smile, spat contemptuously in the direction of Aksha, and then quickly led him ahead with his wife and children. Ronan dragged the already lost girl into the room, while Ed, who stayed outside, looked at Aksha and the two of them, his face full of excitement. He is expecting the other party to resist. Sir, just now, I saw your Majesty's grace in you. These garbage dare to threaten a nobleman. If I had to say, the army of the kingdom should have killed them all. Upon hearing his first half of the sentence, Ronan's movement of holding the cup stiffened slightly. He carefully scrutinized Baron Exeter's expression, confirming that it was just an unintentional remark made by the other party after they were aroused, before putting down the cup. Otherwise, he will throw a cup and summon Ed. Can that be said? After a noble greeting with the Baron, Ronan officially informed him of the reason for his visit. Regarding the sale of territorial Cold Wind territory. The Baron, who was originally enthusiastic and had a humble attitude, calmed down when he heard this question. Ronan was not surprised by this at all. Although the other party showed great respect to him, it was because he did not touch on the other party's interests. Once it comes to their fundamental interests, nobles don't care if you are royal or not, they should turn their backs every minute. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. The Compromised Baron. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 The Compromised Baron. Well, the issue of this fiefdom. Baron Exeter rubbed his hands and looked uncertain. I have already marked the price at the Chamber of Commerce Center. Since the Lord has found this place, I believe he is also aware of it. But you should understand that's not realistic. Ronan said calmly, according to the selling price you indicated, I can buy the entire Hushin Avenue. I came to visit with sincerity, and I hope you, Baron, can be sincere. Of course, I swear to be more sincere than ever. You must understand that it is the land passed down from generation to generation in my family. My feelings for the Cold Wind leader are second only to His Majesty's love for the kingdom, and I will not tolerate any deception. The Baron's words were full of emotion, but Ronan had no interest in continuing to waste time with him. I can give you a quote of 200 gold coins. With the current serious situation of the Black Death, I even suspect that there are no surviving lords in your fiefdom. This is already the highest price. 200 gold coins. This is impossible. Baron Exeter screamed in shock, his face flushed with shame. This is a vast land that covers 1/10 of the northern provinces. There is no second baron's estate in the entire kingdom that can match it. The land on the border is not valuable, there are only 5 small dilapidated villages in total. It's a miracle that hundreds of people are still alive now, and 99% of the other places are useless permafrost, which even mice find disdainful. Why don't you continue to plot land in the northern permafrost desert, which would be bigger than the entire Ottoman kingdom? Ronan chuckled and pointed his words in the right direction, and the cold wind leader is thousands of kilometers away from Triumphal City. If it weren't for having no choice, do you think I would be willing to take the risk of the Black Death all the way there? Even the most precious territory, under the threat of death from the Black Death, appears insignificant. In the current state of illness, remote territories are not only worthless, but also a tool for declaring the death of lords, which normal people are afraid of avoiding. You know better than me that as the deadline approaches, the price of your territory will only get lower and lower. In another month, it may be difficult to sell 100 gold coins. Also, to remind you, a day ago during the church's mass, both the Cobo and Alder families sent their heirs to Triumphal City for refuge. Upon hearing these words, Baron Exeter was stunned, with a struggling expression in his eyes. These 2 major families are both famous feudal earl families in the kingdom, occupying 2 vast grain plains in the west and south respectively. Their movements often reflect the most real situation of the kingdom. Why are these feudal nobles who come to Triumphal City for refuge, knowing that the price of their fiefdoms will only continue to depreciate, yet unwilling to sell them for a long time? Greed is just one aspect, and the bigger reason is their unwillingness. They hoped in their hearts that the Black Death could recede in a short period of time, so they didn't have to give up their territory. The actions of the 2 major families shattered the luck in Baron Exeter's heart, and the situation in the kingdom seemed to be getting worse and worse. The Baron doesn't care about the development of the situation. He is still too far away from that level, but he must consider his own interests. Now, he can't even afford to hire a qualified attendant. The fiefdom must be released as soon as possible. How did you consider it? Anyway, the price you offered is too low for me to accept. If in the past, the value of the cold wind collar exceeded at least 6,000 gold coins, I think there would be other nobles willing to offer better terms. The Baron, who had made up his mind to sell, had other ideas in his mind. Ronan could see this from his expression change, but he didn't care. No one else would be willing to take over the cold wind collar except me, and my gift is not free. The remote and poor location of the cold wind ridge meant that it could not attract the interest of the descendants of the big family, let alone Ronan, who also made a move. Why is he willing to help Baron Exeter erase his debts for no reason? It's not just to follow the rules of the nobility. In the face of other social forces, there is a natural alliance between the nobility and the nobility, which is a hidden rule for the upper echelons of Triumphal City to maintain each other. So he wouldn't take advantage of the situation when Baron Exeter was threatened by the Brotherhood and ask him to use his fiefdom for help, but instead directly solve the problem. Behind the Brotherhood, there may be support from other nobles, but there will never be any nobles openly associated with them. And if the Baron of Exeter, who accepted his help, was unwilling to sell the fiefdom to him, Ronan naturally had a way to make him unable to stay in Triumphal City. Nobles have aristocratic gameplay, such as violent coercion, which has too many side effects and can easily affect their reputation, leading to resistance from others. The Baron is not a fool, he can hear the threat in Ronan's words. He remembered the other party's prestigious royal coat of arms, remained silent for a while, and then spoke up in an attempt to gain more benefits for himself. 500 coins, only 500 coins are needed, and the cold wind collar will be yours from now on. Ronan knew that the situation had stabilized, and from the moment the Baron quoted, he had already fallen into a disadvantage. As an elegant nobleman, please do not bargain with me like those merchants. The transaction went smoothly, and Ronan's words were like the last straw that crushed the camel, causing Baron Exeter to give up resistance. In the city hall, under the witness of church members, Ronan successfully obtained the cold wind collar from Baron Exeter with a tax payment of 200 gold coins and 50 gold coins. After the transaction ended, the Baron's mentality changed extremely quickly. His gloomy expression had already disappeared from his face, and he warmly invited Ronan to participate in the recent banquet. Ronan, who was not interested in it, politely refused him and shook his head as he watched the Baron leave. Judging from the Baron's performance, if he loses his fiefdom, he may disappear from the triumphal city within a few months. But that's none of his business. Ronan held the document in his hand and became happy. He finally has his own fiefdom and can take the first step towards the future. Before that, he still had a small trouble to solve around him. Ronan looked at the girl beside him, who had been in a daze since being glared at by the members of the Uksha Brotherhood, and was led by him. "Do you still have any relatives alive?" Ronan said to her. After being stunned for a while, the girl realized that she was talking to herself and couldn't help but shrink back. After a while, she timidly shook her head. Are you orphans?" Ronan has heard some street rumors that some gangs seem to collect orphans from slums and use begging, theft, and other means to make them a tool for making money. But he doesn't pay attention to these things. There is too much darkness in this era, and even Ronan himself is in it. "I'll give you 2 choices as compensation for saving me some money," Ronan said as he looked at the girl. "First, I'll give you 10 silver coins and let you go." The girl's body stiffened as she thought of Uksha's murderous gaze. "Secondly, I will arrange for you to become an apprentice at a herbal shop on Triumph Avenue, where there are my people and the members of the Brotherhood cannot enter." The girl's eyes lit up, and Ronan nodded. "It looks like you have a choice, so that's it." After taking her to Fragrance Street and arranging accommodation and work at the herbal shop he was involved in, Ronan turned around and left. Anyway, it was just a business he participated in for the convenience of buying the herbs he needed. Even if the girl caused trouble, he didn't care. When he was almost home, he realized that he didn't even know the other person's name. However, this is indeed not worth paying attention to. End of this chapter.